that gun, boy. You got you a blog.
Greetings, Earthling. We started out with the original two shooters by cops, and I'm sure you've been following that whole thing before the Dallas shooting started, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I just on Facebook and a couple minutes of news coverage, but I haven't really dived into the particulars. The most recent thing that I saw was the guy was falsely identified as a suspect in the Dallas shooting.
Yeah, the first two shootings, there's one out there. There's one guy that got shot that nobody's really getting too up in arms about because he had a big rap sheet and everything like that. But then the other guy, man, I'm a big supporter of the boys in blue, obviously. Ex-military, the whole gig. That one's pretty bad, I'm gonna say.
So Alton Sterling was the guy in the parking garage, and then Philando was the guy in the car. And I think you mean the guy in the parking garage, right?
Yeah, so, there's some out there that just, because they got the video, and it's pretty, in my opinion, it's pretty blatant. It seems like there was some mishandling by the police officer in that one scenario. But at the same time, I wish we were at a point in history where we could now take each individual scenario and, put them on trial like how we're supposed to do it. But I feel like we've just completely bypassed that system in today's world. We're not concerned about getting all the facts. We're just concerned about instantaneously turning something into a media circus, basically, right off the bat. What's your feeling you're getting out of this?
Well, I appreciate that you said that there was blatant mishandling. You're admitting that there was fault on the part of the police in this incident. And honestly, most people can't even do that. They've got to qualify it in some regard. They've got to make excuses for it in some regard. And I understand that systems are in place for a reason. Whether that reason is good or bad is not the point of this statement. But I feel that the difference in these since Mike Brown on, all the shootings that have been in the public eye since the Black Lives Matter movement took shape, the difference is the coverage. We're seeing these things happen, whether it's a police body cam, a dash cam, a cell phone. This has been happening from day one, but now there's a light shown on it. And I think whether there's misconduct or not varies from situation to situation, like you're saying, but the incidences of violence and killing has not changed. The numbers are the same.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's not like this. None of this stuff we're seeing is new.
Right.
None of it. It's just back in the day. Here's the reality: even as a huge supporter of the boy in blue, look, every organization has its corrupt people. That's just the way the world works because some of us just suck. You got this weird thing going on. First of all, I don't think people understand that the police department is not like the military. Okay, so it's not one of those things that just I've seen people say why aren't good cops standing up for these bad cops and everything. I was like, well, first of all, you can't expect a police department in California to know what the heck is going on in a police precinct down in Texas. They're completely unrelated. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure, but that people mean in general.
Yeah, there's no way that they're gonna know. It's almost the same with me. When I was in the Navy, I was in the medical field, asking me to stand up against bad people that are an electrical engineer. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know anything about them. I don't know what they do.
But honestly, people only expect the eyewitnesses, your partner, your superior, the people that are there. No one's expecting people randomly to come forward, only if you have knowledge.
The one person I was talking to, that's exactly what they were expecting to happen. And that's why I explained to them that you're not going to get random people out of nowhere coming up to stand up for these things because they have no involvement in anything. That's all I was saying.
That makes sense.
But I agree 100%. And then here's your other dark reality. your local police departments, these are your crews. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
These are your brothers. You know, as much as we pretend each of us are above this, none of us are above this. You see the exact same thing in everything you do. You turn a blind eye to your friends doing bad stuff all the time. That's how we are as humans instinctually. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it doesn't. Now there might be an ethical code that we've created as a standard, but all it is a mind code. It doesn't technically mean anything. And you say they should be ratting on people. Yeah, but that's not really how humans work. We don't work that way, because we have to deal with these people day in and day out, and a lot of times people don't want to. These people don't want to be the pariahs. You know what I'm saying?
I understand that to a point, but at some point there's got to be a good bystander in the bunch. Like the whole system can't be there to protect the guilty actions. Like, I understand not ratting on your friends and not telling on, but when there's a life at stake, something's got to rise up in you that says, I've got to say something. I can't live with this. And I refuse to believe that every person just ignores that.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. All I'm talking about is how humans actually work in real life. I get, and I stand by what you said 100%.
But how humans work and how the police departments function, there's a disconnect there, because a human has empathy. A human can relate to a fellow human being. When a police officer puts on a badge and a gun, you can see it in their face. They've become the Terminator. They've become something other than human with an agenda that we don't stop until we win or till he's dead. And there's no compromising that. That's not human.
And I agree with that. But that's also, you know, as much as we love to downplay the connection between the police force and the military, there's a really fine line, man. And the reality is, when you are when you're in a job of defense in general, there's no way, especially when you're feeling threatened, there's no way to. And I've been in that scenario before, and you know, we should say they need to act completely different. But when you put people in a scenario where their lives are at risk, every single time, people will ultimately do whatever it takes to defend themselves and not worry about the other person first. That's how we are humans. And until you can figure out how to change that, what's going to happen is you're just going to, of course, you're just going to have more and more and more of this. Like, there's nothing, because there's not really, I've never heard anything out there. I see everybody out there putting in their 2 cents about what the problem is, but I have not honestly seen one thing out there, even as a basic skepticism type person, anything out there that looks like a logical solution to any of this. I just don't. I see, and I'm not even going to bag him. Barack Obama came out, and when the snipers came out, the first thing he started talking about. He started talking about the high-power assault rifle. Didn't talk about the shooter. That was his defense, and I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong. He first off went to a solution based on politics. That was the first thing he went to on the scenario. And I personally don't believe that's a solution. Maybe some people do. And then I've seen other things, like I had somebody converse with me who says we need to start, and I'm not trying to make fun of people here, we need to work on becoming empathetic and loving our neighbors. So I was like, well, thank you for this 5,000-year-old proverb that has been around since the beginning of time. I was like, I understand that. The problem is, not a single person out there even can determine what the definition of loving another person is. So I was like, I haven't seen anything out there that resembles even the slightest solution that's going to fix relations between the citizens and the cops. What's your take?
Sure. Well, I think the answer, you said it earlier in a way that human nature, you can't really override human nature. So the fact that people want to protect themselves first, and then protect themselves second, and then protect a stranger third, that hierarchy is ingrained in us, and I sort of agree with that. Okay, so when Barack says that the high-powered rifles, so this is not a gun issue. I will say that straightforward. The empathy thing, not every human is wired to be empathetic. It requires a certain set of experiences and a perspective in order to become empathetic. I don't think that can be a flat out answer either. But learning the humanity of the people that you're interacting with, I feel could be a step in the right direction. What do I mean by that? If I encounter a regular civilian that has a gun, okay, and we have a misunderstanding, an altercation, or whatever, I am not going to be that fearful for my life because he's got society that's going to judge him. He's going to be subject to the rules and the court system and the regulations of the land. But if I get into an altercation with a police officer, I'm scared for my life because I know as long as he decides that I'm worth the filling out the paperwork and worth the media attention, he can take my life with no consequence. He's not viewing me as a human. I'm not viewing him as a human. So I think that's the crux of the situation right there.
And I would agree. The problem is the whole concept of keeping law and order allows the police to have a higher standard of truth than the average person does. Because that's the only way you can have a police system work.
Oh, I disagree. Look at Scotland. Look at other countries, European countries that don't have their police force armed and the violence that we see. It's doable other ways.
Yeah. You're comparing two completely different cultures. I mean, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, what's going to work in one country might not work here. So, I mean, I would say in our system, I don't want to say you have to be fearful, but to an extent you do have to be fearful of the police. And I use that in a healthy fear. There needs to be a healthy fear, because without that healthy fear, you really don't have anything controlling anything in society.
I disagree. I don't agree with that.
There's basically only two ways you can control a society in the first place. One is on a moral high ground. So what that means is the culture and the people have decided to collectively that here is a set of morals we will all adhere to, and we will police ourselves, and we will not do bad things. I don't think that's society we're in. I think we're in the fearful society. And the only thing that keeps anybody anymore from doing anything wrong is the fear of consequence, in my personal opinion, because I don't feel like anybody has any ethics or morals anymore.
Well, I agree about the consequences part. That's what the court system is for. So the police's duty is to make sure that a suspect reaches the point of accountability in front of a judge and or jury. It's not to execute justice in the moment. There's cameras everywhere. There's investigators on payroll. You don't have to solve and subdue every individual on the street in the encounter. You can follow that person. You can put out a warrant. You can get them, subpoena them to court. That's what the justice system is for. So the fear of consequences has nothing to do with the ability of the badge to subdue the individual on the street, is my opinion.
I will agree with that statement. Yep, I 100% agree with that statement. The job of the cop is not to carry out justice. I 100% agree with that.
But they don't understand that. They don't act as if they understand that at all.
And that may be an area we need to change. That may be. So now, as an outside perspective, because I'm not a cop, I have a lot of cop buddies. But you also have here's your reality. You're going to have more police in areas that are higher crime areas. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Provided there's a budget for it, yes, because I would assume that the places that need the more education attention would have more schools, but you don't see that. So logically I understand you, but the resources are not always allocated fairly.
That's very true. So you have a tough balance here, because you have the people that are being shot. First of all, the police officer has a split-second decision to make a determination on whether he has to use deadly force or not. First of all, there's nothing out there there is no protocol, no legislation that can help with that split-second decision. It's just not possible. There's no way for any training to tell you whether your life is in danger in that moment or not. There are statistical, you can say certain scenarios, but there's no way to really know if your life is in true danger. Because there can be a guy out there waving a gun, but you know that there's actually not really any danger. Because it just might be a crazy person that's doing something, and you're just like, I know that person. It's just we can talk him down. Theoretically, a person waving a gun is the first one should be shot, in my opinion. But I'm giving specific scenarios. And then you got a guy on the ground that has a gun in his pocket that is a lot more dangerous in a split second than that guy that's actually waving the gun around. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but you're just assuming that their only choices are use deadly force or not use deadly force. This whole issue of de-escalation in regards to training and protocol is not the right question to be asking, in my opinion, because the bias is clear. They've done studies that show when they go through training in the video simulators and they see a brown suspect, they're more likely to shoot. They're more likely to shoot quicker. They're more likely to shoot to kill. When the suspect is white, they're more likely to wait and assess the threat and quote-unquote de-escalate. So these biases that are internal can't be trained and they can't be legislated, like you said.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. You still there, Doug?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Thought you lost you again. I actually agree with that 100%. Because the reality is, cultural. There's a difference in cultures, and people are scared of different cultures. That's just the world we live in. So, I had a conversation, with somebody, and this is just me being real, and because I wanted to investigate this on a real life. Had a girl. I asked this question to. I had a girl. I put her in a scenario. And I said, let's say your car broke down in the middle of LA. And you have, first off, there's a group of 3 white guys walking towards you versus a group of 3 black men walking towards you. And I said, which one are you more afraid of? And she said, I'm not going to lie, she said the black one. I said, why? And she's like, I don't know. She's like, I don't know why that is. But she's like, the reality is it's true. So I don't disagree with your statement at all. And I believe that it actually is true that certain cultures are more scared of other cultures and races are scared of other races. The issue with that is, we're going back to the same thing, is I don't see a solution to fixing that. Because we naturally as humans migrate to what we're like, and we're scared of what we're not. And we love to call this American melting pot thing. We love this great American experiment. But personally, I feel it's all crashing to the ground. I think it's the end. I'm actually doing a segment on the great American experiment, whether it's over. So keep that in mind. We got that coming up. But I think we're at the point where that experiment's starting to break down a little bit. And because we just realized that these cultures, between different people and different cultures, they just don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. So with that in mind, like, how do you fix that? If people don't agree on the ideals, the cores of what being an American or whatever used to be, if we don't agree on this stuff anymore, how the heck do we plan on fixing it?
Well, I'm going to give you 2 historical solutions that the police have tried. One that worked and one that the jury's still out. So, do you remember the North Hollywood bank robbery where the suspects had paramilitary gear? They had high-powered rifles, vest-piercing bullets. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
After that happened, that was essentially a loss for the police department. They lost the encounter, and that's unacceptable, in their opinion. So they upped their firepower for good, not just for bank robberies. Every officer or every department now has higher powered ammunition and firepower because of that incident. So that's solution number 1. Number 2 is the high-speed chases. High-speed chases, still, when they're on, all the news channels cut to it. It's great entertainment. And the policy used to be you pursue until the suspect is in custody. They have since changed that rule because too many civilians were getting injured and killed in the course of a traffic pursuit. Now, if the suspect is above 110 miles an hour, the police are allowed to use their discretion and pull back because, like I said before, you've got helicopters, you've got investigators, you've got other means of pursuing this individual other than brute force in the moment. You see where I'm going with this? So if you let the officers use their discretion and say, you know what, if a criminal outsmarts you in the moment, we'll get him back. If a criminal, you think they're going to overpower you in the moment, we'll get him in a few hours. You don't have to win every encounter as if you're a linebacker. That's the solution. Give them discretion.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have an issue with that. I really don't have an issue with that. You know, I do have an issue with that when it puts a lot of people's lives in danger. It's that discretion thing in the first place. But I don't really have an issue with, like, if you didn't get the criminal right now, to hold off for a couple hours and not just start shooting. I actually don't have an issue with that. And I don't think that's a bad solution to start out. Do you think that going down that route, changing it to that, would have any impact on the amount of crime, though? Because if people know they're not shot.
Well, again, you got to ask the right question. We're not going to affect the amount of crime with a police policy, because the needs of the criminals are not going to change. Those are systemic problems that we have to fix other ways. But will we have less suspects being murdered trying to be captured? Absolutely. And the thing you brought up about the threats, if a large group of people are in danger, say like, a bomb threat or, assault rifles or whatever the case may be, in my opinion, the discretion is you take him out any means necessary. But if you've got a single man who's maybe selling illegal items by himself in a parking garage or whatever the case may be, that's a victimless crime and can be resolved any number of ways, obviously without force, and at a later date. So, like I said, the discretion.
No, I agree 100%. I was just messing around and saying, but come on, man, selling CDs, that's pretty criminal in 2016.
Well, you got to hear the music first.
No, but I actually agree with you 100%. Like, I don't have any issue with that. I don't have any issue with reevaluating because, they're talking about trying to demilitarize police a little bit. Which is really, it's one of those weird things that it sounds great in theory. I'm a little concerned about how it would play out in real life because I'm looking at the world right now, and I'm looking at the United States, and let me back up for a second. I posted something. I did post one thing, of course, in my sarcastic humor. You didn't by any chance read what I wrote about this whole situation, did you?
I think I scrolled past it, but I don't remember what it was.
Basically, I said the solution is we should just have black cops monitoring black neighborhoods, white cops monitoring white neighborhoods.
I did see that.
Asian, and it was supposed to be a joke because what I'm talking about is segregation.
Right.
It's a total joke, obviously. There's not really a solution in here. That's what I was basically saying. And then somebody's like, oh my gosh, love needs to be an answer. And I was like, no, not really. I was like, having a cute word like love. We live in a society where, we don't have a unified country. We just don't. You can't look at our country now and you don't have the same pro-America stance. We're all Americans that we did back in the 80s when we were fighting off other countries and everything like that. We've comfortable now. We've now decided that we're going to take the war against our own people. So we have this vastly divided country on this scenario where I went through my feed and all I said was like, you either love cops and don't have any problem with police brutality, or you hate cops, or you're a racist. Like, there's no middle ground. We no longer look at each other as just fellow Americans with different political opinions. We're actually looking at each other as enemies right now. And this is my biggest concern when trying to figure this out, because to come out with compromise, you guys have to find middle ground. But the problem is enemies don't find middle ground. You know what I'm saying? It's very difficult to compromise and find middle ground with a person that you consider your enemy. So this is why I am such you can call it pessimist, you can call it realist, but I'm not feeling like we're going to get anything good coming out of this whole scenario that's actually going to fix anything. What's your thoughts?
My thought is this: enemies become friends over a common enemy. So the last time that the nation was truly bonded together and feeling like Americans and feeling patriotic was after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. And it's been unraveling slowly ever since. So as long as we have another large-scale attack that we can rally around, we'll be fine. And it's coming.
Oh, man. Okay, everybody. I don't know if you just heard that, but Doug is now a conspiracy theorist.
100%.
I'm just joking. The sad part is, it's not even really a conspiracy theorist. It's just the dang truth, unfortunately. You're right on. That's what we do. We run around when we have another enemy. It's amazing. And you're 100% accurate. Our country was so divided prior to 2011. Man, 2001 after the terrorist attack. And all of a sudden, everybody was throwing up American flags all the time.
That's right.
Because we now had another common enemy. And I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist. But, I wouldn't be shocked because we know it works. So it wouldn't be shocked if within the next couple of months we had a big terrorist attack or anything, would it?
The problem is you have to raise the ante. It's got to be something major to where people are truly shocked and horrified, and we get numb to these levels of violence as they escalate. The school shootings, the bombings, the nightclub shooting. It's gonna have to be an amusement park or children or something really heinous and gruesome to really grab people beyond the conspiracy theorists to where they're truly disgusted together. You know what I mean?
Yep, I 100% agree. Because look,
talk is cheap, motherfucker.